This story stretches from the mean streets of Gary, Indiana, all the way to Lagos, Nigeria. In fact, Bola Tinibu is the current president of Nigeria. The evidence is beyond circumstantial. I mean, he was certainly involved with trafficking back in Chicago and Gary, Indiana, late 80s to the early 90s.
Good day, my name is Angelo, and this is that YouTube channel that keeps you updated on issues pertaining the political system in Nigeria and abroad, and how it borders the Nigerian populace. Nation Voice Tower, as you always know. Right now, first of all, I want to tell you something. If you think you know Bola Tinibu so well, you don't. Yes, I am saying this with lots of courage. Okay, if you think you know Bola Tinibu so well, you don't. All right, please pay attention to this video. This video is going to be like the season 2. Let me call it the second season of what David Hundeyin said on Bola Tinibu and the video. Remember the first one, right? I gave you a video evidence of how the Chicago DEA and then the FBI got him in his house, came to the same address that he gave them and all that. You remember the video, right? Yes, you did a good job on that. Now I have a season 2. This season 2 is in 2 parts, part 1 and 2. So this is his story, part 1. I will expose things in this video by David Hundeyin and other international journalists that you will be shocked to hear. Now, one Alan Brady under the platform called Americandope consulted David Hundeyin because he heard that David Hundeyin knows this story very, very well. They combined services. They released a shocker on Bola Ahmed Tinibu. It's a shocker. You have to pay attention to this. Please listen. The Americandope platform was actually interested in the Bola Tinibu story right from time immemorial. After the Chicago case, lots of platforms are now interested in Bola Tinibu's case. So this Americandope took interest in David Hundeyin because they heard that he has a grip on this. Now listen to what will be exposed in this video. I will bring it in 2 parts, part 1 and part 2. So if you're paying attention to part 1, you should pay attention to part 2. Please make it go viral. Make it go viral. Just like the first one, I would like you to do a better job on this. Now, if you don't know that the Bola Tinibu story stretches from one Larry Hoover, who is now 72 years. Larry Hoover is the former founder of a Chicago street gang known as the Gangster Disciples. He was arrested in 1973 and over again in different years. Yes, he has been indicted for lots of reasons. Now, in this video, part 1, I'm going to be telling you, or you're going to be hearing from the video, and you're going to be watching eyeball to eyeball, yes, whether Bola Tinibu once served the jail term or not in America. His credit card and bank account fraud, you don't even know that part about him, right? You'll hear it in this video. His alleged job with Deloitte and what Deloitte said about him. His deportation, you don't know he was deported, you're going to hear it from this video. The different stories of his family background, whether he's rich, whether he's poor, because he has told different people different stories. Sometimes he says I'm rich, sometimes he says I'm poor. You will hear it from this video. His involvement with Chicago State University, his involvement with Richard Daley College, formerly known as the Southwestern College. You will watch it from this video. How the Deloitte company denied having known any employee like Bola Tinibu in their records. You will hear it from this video. You will hear the real response of Chicago State University and from David Hundeyin himself. You've been hearing it from different accounts on Twitter and all that. David Hundeyin will tell you what Chicago State University said by themselves and what brought about the final case of yesterday that ruled that Chicago State University should please produce the results of Bola Tinibu. You will also hear watch from this video the real difference between Bola Tinibu's 2 certificates, the one in the records of Chicago State University and the one Bola Tinibu tendered to INEC. You're going to know the difference and who said it and how it came. You will know Bola Tinibu's involvement in Thailand. You have never known and heard, right? You will know his involvement in Thailand with the gang and his gang name and how he worked, who he worked under, and how who he worked under met with him. You will know the involvement of the NDLEA during his deportation from the US down to Nigeria and Bola Tinibu's involvement with the NDLEA and how the NDLEA presented a popular Nigerian artist, Naira Marley, as an ambassador who all Nigerians known to be somebody who peddles, lots of illicit substances, all right? Lots of things in this video. Without wasting much of your time, please watch this video and tell me what you really understood and the secrets that will be let bare in this video. Stay tuned.
This story stretches from the mean streets of Gary, Indiana, all the way to Lagos, Nigeria. In fact, Bola Tinibu is the current president of Nigeria. The evidence is beyond circumstantial. I mean, he was certainly involved with trafficking back in Chicago and Gary, Indiana, late 80s to the early 90s. I interviewed a Nigerian journalist who actually had to leave the country. He got political asylum in a different country, and he's been reporting on the story. The current president of Nigeria,
A man known as Jack Bobo on the street. Officials charge he made a bundle selling heroin smuggled into Chicago through a Nigerian connection.
So we're going to jump right in and then backtrack. We're going to jump right in and backtrack and slowly tell the story and introduce you. But this is such an explosive thing. The current president of Nigeria appears with a lot of circumstantial evidence to have been at the least laundering money for a heroin operation in the United States in the late 80s, circa 1990. And you're one of the journalists kind of at the forefront of this story, correct?
Yes.
And what's your name?
David Undayan. This particular story, which you're interested in, I've kind of had an idea that there was something there for what I wasn't the first to report it. However, so I think before me, there was a platform called Sahara Reporters, a Nigerian platform. And there's a US platform called the Daily Beast, which had kind of tempted to take a stab at this thing, but it wasn't very well told. It was.
So you found some new documents, right?
I mean, well, not so new because I mean these.
Well,
these
I mean, you were the first one to kind of out some of these documents.
Yes, basically. So, so the core of the case, which is the federal investigation in 1993, well, 1992 actually, which identified Bola Tinibu as a money launderer working for a heroin gang in Chicago. Those documents have actually been available for 30 plus years, I guess. But only one other platform had actually tried to get hold of them from the National Archives in the US. So I was able to get hold of them last year, 2022. And shortly after my story was published, then they sort of sparked a feeding frenzy back home. A bunch of other people wanted to get their hands on the document. So if you're in Chicago, if you go to I think it's the Northern District of Illinois, Eastern Division, the district courts, you can just pay a $35 filing fee, right, and you get the document now because it's in such high demand, basically. So in addition to that document, there were some other things I was able to take out. I was able to get hold of his real estate property transactions across the US. Which is
very important because that ties a lot of stuff together.
Yeah, which no one else had done at the time. And basically piece together different pieces of the story, which I guess different people had tried to tell at different times to sort of present the bigger picture. Hey, this isn't just a corrupt politician, which is like a normal thing around here, but this is someone who has a background in organized crime. Right? This is Pablo Escobar.
So let me give the viewers a nutshell story, and then you can expand upon it. So Bola Tinibu goes to the U.S. in the 80s. He gets a college degree. He starts working as an accountant for maybe Mobile Exxon or something, Africa division, but he's in the U.S. He meets several other Nigerians, one of whom goes back to Nigeria, one stays in Chicago, and after several years, his name comes up in this indictment out of Gary, Indiana, for a large-scale street-level heroin trafficking, but they were getting large amounts. And Tinibu is tied to this guy
by using bank accounts that are registered to the same addresses. Him and the guy's girlfriend or wife had another bank account together. They might have bought some property together, and there was about $1.2 million or $1.8 million that he can't account for. It went through his accounts, and he didn't get indicted, but he was already gone to Nigeria, and they seized his money. And for those that don't know, the U.S. government, taking someone's money is fine too, especially if they're in another continent. At the time, Nigeria probably wasn't going to extradite him anyways, so they cut a deal with him, and they said, well, we'll keep $4.5 million, we'll give you whatever, 800,000 back. But his name is directly tied with this Ekbeli through bank accounts, and Ekbeli pled guilty and became an informant, right, in the case. Did he get prison time?
To the best of my knowledge, he did actually. I'm not exactly sure how long he did, but he did do a stretch in prison, yes. And he subsequently deported.
Okay. So I guess I gave it to him in a nutshell. What would you like to, how would you like to expound upon it?
So, basically
he's the president. Just to reiterate to people watching, this guy's the president of Nigeria right now.
Well, so, I mean, I guess where the story really gets interesting is, so starting from last year, when I decided to tell this story, after telling the initial story, some other new developments came up. So, something else which had been a bone of contention for a long time was what the background that he claimed to have had. So he always claimed to have worked at Deloitte, the consulting firm Deloitte, where he claimed that he was paid a bonus of $1.2 million, which is mathematically impossible. So he claimed to have worked at Deloitte. He claimed to have attended when he first became governor of Lagos State in 1999. He claimed that he attended the University of Chicago. When an attempt was made to verify this, University of Chicago immediately disowned him. He said, "You don't know this person."
Did he go to any university?
So then he claimed that, no, sorry, I made a mistake. He wasn't actually the University of Chicago. It was Chicago State University. That was his story.
Big difference.
Yeah. Unfortunately, under Nigerian law, once someone is a governor or a president, he has legal immunity. You can't be tried in a criminal court. So even though an attempt was made to try to hold
what would he have been tried for?
For perjury, basically.
Perjury,
for lying on his declaration. Right? But perjury is a criminal offense, so a sitting governor or a sitting president can't be tried for perjury. Right? So
same thing here.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a catch-22 kind of situation. So even though an attempt was made to try to, hold his feet to the fire, just the fact of his immunity sort of enabled him to get away with it. So he was the governor for 8 years, and then he dropped out of public service altogether after 8 years. So I guess there was no incentive to go after him until last year when he decided to run for president, which is where I got involved. Now, I thought that there are a lot of things. When you tell lies, there are a lot of things you say in different places that don't add up. So I've heard different versions of his story from his mouth, speaking at different times. So depending on who he's speaking to, he'll sometimes claim to have come from a really poor background. Some other times he'll claim to have been the son of a really wealthy person. Like, his stories never added up. So I decided, what? I want to do a full verification of the backstory of this guy. I want to verify the places he says he has worked at, the institutions he claims to have attended, the achievements he claims to have had. I want everything to be verified. So working in conjunction with a lawyer in Abuja. His name is Barrister Mike Nahor. So both of us basically went to work on this project last year. We worked in tandem with a law firm in Chicago, Lee, Eisenberg, and Frankel, and a private investigator, Robert Hanrahan, also in Chicago, to basically get to the bottom of all of this. So we're able to get subpoenas sent out to Chicago State University to Richard Daley College, which was previously known as Southwest College. It's a community college in Chicago. To Deloitte, to Arthur Andersen, because he also claimed to have worked at Arthur Andersen.
They're out of business now, aren't they?
Yes. So we sent a subpoena to Andersen Tax, which is like a successor company of Arthur Andersen, basically saying whatever records you have in this guy, we want it, right? And so the court granted the subpoena. So the documents that we got back told a very interesting story. So first of all, the response from Deloitte was, we have no records for this person. We don't know him. So that was a lie. The response from Chicago State University was even more interesting. Why it was interesting was because they opened this whole new bag of worms. So according to Chicago State University's records, the person known as Ola A. Tinibu, whom Chicago State University apparently has on file as a student who graduated in 1979 with a degree in business administration, that person, according to their records, was female.
Is Bola a name that could be male or female?
It's a unisex name, yes. Okay. However, on their record, this person was female.
So, like, he stole an identity?
Potentially, yes. Exactly. And there are several discrepancies. So the date of birth of the person that Chicago State University has on file is a different date of birth to his own stated, declared date of birth. There's a 2-year discrepancy between both of them. So he claims to have been born in 1952. The date of birth of the person on file at Chicago State is 1954. So that's an issue. The degree certificate, which he submitted to the Independent National Electoral Commission in Nigeria, that degree certificate and the degree certificate that Chicago State University tendered in response to the subpoena were completely different documents. The dates on them were different. The wording of the certificate was different. The signatures on the certificate were different. The logo of Chicago State University on certificates were different. The one he submitted actually had a grammatical error.
So he seems to have submitted some forged, fake, or just a counterfeit document.
It's not might have. He submitted a forgery, and this recently was actually established in court because after the election, which he supposedly won, one of the challenger who officially
supposedly won. You think that's even in doubt?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Oh, so that's yet another story. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So the contender who apparently came second is actually in court in Chicago right now, trying to get the court to issue a secondary subpoena to Chicago State University to release everything they have on this guy. And I think there was a hearing last week, and in the course of the hearing, the lawyer who was representing Chicago State University was asked point blank that this certificate, which this person submitted to the Electoral Commission in Nigeria, can you authenticate the certificate? And he said, no, you cannot authenticate it. So that tells you everything you need to know. So this person submitted a forgery to the Electoral Commission. So on its own, that constitutes some of the most serious perjury you can imagine on its own.
Yeah, so you're lying about who you are and your education.
Exactly.
So is he even Bola Tinibu?
Again, that's a question, right? Because a very popular theory back home is that that's an identity that he adopted.
Jack Bobo, according to his indictment last month, is one of the leaders of the Black Soul street gang. The Black Souls and Jack Bobo, according to the indictment, sold $50,000 worth of heroin on Chicago streets every day. Who buys China White?
Everybody.
When you say everybody, you mean who?
All types of races, all types of classes. You have the suburban housewife, you have the businessman, college students.
But how does China White make its way to the streets of Chicago and into the suburbs here? The answer comes from half a world away. China White has its beginnings in the poppy fields of the Golden Triangle, where Thailand borders on what we once called Burma. The delivery system, according to Don Føund of the DEA in Thailand, is made up of Nigerian drug runners.
Nobody was going to predict that we were going to have what appears to be the equivalent to a Yukon gold rush of West Africans coming to Thailand to score drugs and bring them on into the United States.
But that's what we have.
That's exactly what we have. You're seeing the results of it in Chicago.
A case in point is this man. Remy Baker, according to federal officials and Chicago police, is high on the ladder of international Nigerian drug runners. And Baker is accused of having a direct link to Jack Bobo and the Black Souls of Chicago.
Well, and for those listening who, I mean, everyone knows what Nigeria is, but just so people realize, Sub-Saharan Africa has been the fastest growing economic zone in the world since the year 2000, faster than China. Nigeria is the largest country in Sub-Saharan Africa. Nigeria has tremendous oil resources. Nigeria is a country that has, well, in the United States, Nigerians obtain doctorates at a higher rate than the white population. In England, Nigeria is poised to be one of the more important countries as we get later into the 21st century. It's already has lots of Nigerian people, first generation, or people who go back and forth that are in prominent positions, especially in England, but also in the United States and other countries. So Nigeria is not just a name on a map. Nigeria is an important country. Nigeria is also a country that possibly could have some civil unrest due to internal political things it has in the near past. So this isn't just, some dictator in a small country. For the, I've come to realize how little a lot of people know about geography. But so this is the president of an important country now, and a country that's going to be increasingly important with every passing day. Possibly he's not even under his right name, even before we get to the heroin dealing and all that. So that makes you think, was he sent, as part of a crew to go over and establish themselves and get ready for heroin dealing? Or do you think he was just there and he got mixed up with them? Do you know anything about that, the deeper criminal side of it?
So the only thing we do know is that he has lied about everything. So it's actually very difficult to establish exactly prior to his arrival in the US, exactly what is the extent of his involvement in the underworld, right? You hear a lot of whispers. Well, one of the problems with Nigeria is that up until maybe 2003, 2004, there was basically no internet. So anything that happened, so anything that happened prior to that, a lot of what happened prior to that time is just lost forever. It's not recorded anywhere.
It's not even in paper documents, not really.
Yeah, a lot of it is just lost forever. So
and it's a huge, sprawling country with different regional governments.
Exactly. So you hear whispers, you hear allegations, you hear lots of things. But obviously, as a journalist, what you need is documented evidence, facts, right? So there are lots of theories swirling around, and there are lots of things, but these things are very difficult to authenticate. But what we do know for a fact is he was deeply, intimately involved in the heroin trade in Chicago. And even after returning to Nigeria, there has been a constant swirl of that same controversy around him. So presently in Nigeria, there's a brewing drug epidemic. Now, why that is such a problem is that historically, Nigeria has been a transit point.
Yes, but when drugs sit in a country, eventually they're sitting there, people start using them.
Yeah, and the issue is that these are, for lack of a better expression, these are rich people's drugs. Nigeria is way too poor.
Yeah.
So they're having people who are addicted to cocaine and heroin, right? But that is now a thing. Crystal meth is now a big problem in Nigeria.
Are they making the crystal meth there, or is that coming from Mexico? They're actually making
because
it's easy to get the precursor chemicals. There's so much Chinese ties to Nigeria that they're probably getting the precursor straight from China, right?
Yeah. So basically, the issue now is the questions are being asked that how on earth is it that it is so easy to move drugs into and out of Nigeria through Nigeria? There's pretty much no, officially there's a Nigerian version of the DEA. We call it the NDLEA, but it's almost a powerless institution, right? I think one of the more ridiculous things that we've seen was an anti-drug ambassador being appointed by the NDLEA, and this person is a well-known stoner, and I'm being generous by referring to him as a stoner because he probably does,
He's a
harder
drug
stuff
user.
than that.
Yeah.
He's a musician, so you can imagine like the DEA appointing Wiz Khalifa as an anti-drug ambassador, or Charlie Sheen. Imagine how stupid that would be. But that's the equivalent to what we've done. So that's the atmosphere in Nigeria right now. And questions are being asked that how on earth
is that a pretty big? Are most people aware of that in Nigeria, or only in a country where you have a fair amount of people that are middle class and have money, but a lot of people struggling just to live? What's the interest level from the population in in the drug scandal generally, and in Bola Tinubu generally, drug ties? A lot or a little? There is a lot of interest, primarily because especially the middle classes particularly are terrified of basically being viewed in the way that Colombia came to be viewed, as a narco state, because that comes with real consequences. Absolutely.
Already traveling with a Nigerian passport is already sort of like an extreme sport already. Yeah, you're getting a visa with a Nigerian passport to travel to the US or to Europe is already a really big problem.
Is that new? It's gotten harder more recently.
It's always been pretty hard, but with the potential of being labeled as a narco state, it could get even exponentially harder, which a lot of people are terrified of.
Which would impede Nigeria's economic growth, obviously.
Exactly.
And like Guinea-Bissau is already a total narco state. Are you familiar with the Kinahan family?
That sounds Irish.
Yeah, so they're all wanted. There's the father and three sons. They each have a $5 million bounty on them. They were hiding out in Dubai. They were the biggest cocaine cartel in Europe. And supposedly the father might be hiding in Mozambique right now. And a lot of their they were key in the late 90s in staging West Africa as an entry point in a transshipment point. I just wonder if you heard of them. So okay, I didn't know Nigeria itself is actually starting to be, because I know in Italy, there's so many Nigerians in the Naples area involved in crime. Supposedly the Camorra, the organized crime family there, has sanctioned a Nigerian Camorra family, which is pretty wild. Have you ever heard of Black Axe?
Yes, very, very much so. So it's what locally we refer to it as a cult. Now, how we use the term cult in Nigeria is kind of different how it's used in the US. So in the US, the word cult has like religious connotations. But in Nigeria, the word cult is more like a really big gang, which has some of the features of a religious cult. So there's an initiation ritual, you can't leave that, that sort of thing. So that's kind of what the Black Axe is. It's a very violent organization, even though obviously...
Are they mainly focused on prostitution, or have they grown out of that?
It initially started off like many such confraternities, as we call them. It actually started off as a university fraternity once upon a time, but over time it's sort of evolved into basically an organized crime operation. So it has fingers in everything: human trafficking, prostitution, drug trafficking, weapons trafficking, kidnapping for ransom, murder for hire, all sorts of things.
Are they based out of Lagos, or are they all over the country?
There is no central base. You're going to find a lot of them in places like Benin, but there is no HQ. Like they're Hydra basically.
And Benin is just on the southern border of Nigeria.
So Benin is like in the Midwest, so it's like close to the Niger Delta.
Okay. Well, I mean, would you go south down the coast to get and be south of Nigeria?
It is in the south, yes, but it's not on the coast.
Okay, it's not. And Ghana, what abuts? What's right below Nigeria? Ghana?
So do you mean to this? Because basically it's to the south.
So if this is Africa and Nigeria's here, what's here?
The south is the Atlantic, then to the.
Oh, I'm sorry, to the east, southeast, yeah.
Right. So to the east is Cameroon, and to the west is Benin Republic.
Ah, okay.
So to the east is Cameroon, then Central African Republic, Gabon, those countries, central, and then to the west it's Benin Republic, Togo, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia, Burkina Faso. Yeah. So.
All right. Yes, quite long, right? This is just part one. All right. This is part one. I'm going to bring you part two subsequently. Please pay attention to Nation Voice Tower and stay tuned with us. Don't forget to like our videos, share them. Please watch till the end. Always watch till the end. And I would like you to also subscribe to this channel if you love what you saw just now, and tap the notification bell too, so that you get to see me for first hand anytime I drop a new video. From our table, we're saying see you next time. Bye. Don't forget to stay tuned for the part two of this video.